Al-Qaeda elements in Afghanistan and the instability caused by many forces in Central Asia, which were targeting Central Asian countries as well as China in its western Xinjiang province. Russia, of course, has had its own history of problems in Chechnya. So that is where the roots lie. But as far as India is concerned, the moment they admitted Pakistan into the grouping, the grouping became even more useless. Because like right now, one question which nobody is discussing is Prime Minister Modi going to talk to Shehbaz Sharif, who's going to be there at the summit? Is there at least going to be a handshake? And that is going to be a difficult step for India to take after Operation Sindoor and after Pahalgam. That requires a lot more preparation. So Pakistan coming into SCO has reduced its importance for India. Similarly, BRICS is an imaginary concept which emerged from financial institutions in New York. They are not natural partners. Huge geography divides them. But even there, China is the biggest player. And following China, it is India. So once again, I reiterate, it is India-China relations which is the bedrock of all these organizations. If India-China relations are not good, their efficiency and their utility will be affected. If India and China can collaborate with each other, can be strengthened and they will play a much larger role in the world as a counterbalance to many other things which is happening.
Right. Gentlemen, I apologize, but we'll have to pause this discussion at the moment, given the paucity of time. However, we continue to keep our viewers ahead on every development coming in from Tianjin and, of course, get you the best voices to decode this big power play that is on at the moment in Tianjin in China.
Ceding no ground on issues extremely important to us. Similarly with China, there are issues extremely important to us. Part of it is the Pakistan issue which you mentioned.
I don't think we are watching India Today.
Ceding no ground on issues extremely important to us. Similarly with China, there are issues extremely important to us. Part of it is the Pakistan issue which you mentioned. I don't think we can just equate China and the US and US support to Pakistan in that regard, because at least the most recent reports indicate a fair degree of integration between the Chinese militaries and the Pakistani militaries and a continuous flow of intelligence to Pakistan while hostilities were taking place. Certainly, if there is an opportunity, this is an issue Prime Minister Modi should raise, and he should try and get the Chinese to not just pull back, but to put pressure on Pakistan to wind up the terror machine within their country and to stop creating instability in the region by constant terrorist attacks targeting India. Ultimately, China is fairly clear. While Pakistan is a close ally it could not abandon, China's long-term interest lies in a good relationship with India, which is the much bigger country, a bigger player on the international stage, and a strong economic partner. India and China collaborating in the economic field is of benefit to both, and we all know how much economics dictates Chinese policy. So I would say that for India, whether it is China, whether it is the US, the policy approach clearly is stand your ground on vital issues, yet try and make progress wherever you can. Let us not make enemies of them. Let's try and build bridges. Let's try and build friendship. But at the same time, let us also be prepared for the worst. With regard to China, it will be on the defense front, on the security front, if ever our relationship degenerates into a conflict or into tensions, we should be able to deter the Chinese and stand our ground. Similarly with the Americans, when it comes to vital issues of economic interest to India, whether it is purchase of oil, whether it is protecting our agriculture and dairy sector, we must stand firm. Yet we have everything that commands a good relationship with the US.
Interesting you should say that, and I'll get Sushant Sareen to weigh in on this as we take this conversation forward, but we're getting more reactions. You know, when we caught up with some of the Indian diaspora here in Beijing, who've come from different parts of China, whether it's students who are studying here or those who are working here, they seem to seek better cooperation. They say people to people, the Chinese people also want much better cooperation and coordination between the two countries. Easier said than done, but I want to listen in. I want you to listen in to some of the excitement that we witnessed just a short while back as Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived here at the Wanda Hotel in Tianjin.
My name is Harry, and I'm very proud that we see Modi ji, and then we can get a blessing from Modi ji. Thank you. I'm very excited to see Modi ji, but I shake hands with him and I also touch his feet, and he also give me blessing. Yeah, I'm staying with my brother.
I'm living in Xiamen, Fujian, and I'm here like in China for 23 years now, all total, yeah. So this is my whole family here. So we are so excited to see Modi ji, and he given the blessing to everyone. That's what's important, yeah. So I'm really thanks a lot for organizing everything, you know. And
of course, I was like blackout when he saw him. I don't know, I've been waiting him for a long time. So as soon as
it was very good, interacting with the Prime Minister.
What did you say to him?
No, we just said that we've been waiting for you for quite a long because, obviously China is very big and people travel across. A lot of people have come in. There was excitement all around. And you know how popular our Prime Minister is and the kind of work that he's doing for the country. Looking forward, it was his visit after 7 years and very excited. He's very popular in China.
He's so excited, and I think we do our best. And I think Prime Minister, he like our music, classical music. It's
And first up, we cut across to breaking news. Coming in, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just landed in Tianjin in China for the SCO summit, the much-awaited summit, and most importantly, the bilaterals that are scheduled to happen. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to meet with Chinese Premier Xi Jinping and also to engage in a bilateral with Vladimir Putin. That is to happen on Monday. Prime Minister Modi's much-awaited visit that has begun as he has landed in China. Shortly from now, we'll get you those pictures of Prime Minister Narendra Modi landing in China, and of course the program that is slated as a part of his welcome, where he is also slated to meet with the Indian diaspora, and of course a cultural program that has also been planned to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi in China. He is in China, in Tianjin to be precise, for the 25th meeting of the head of states of the Shanghai Cooperation Council, that is the SCO summit, to happen on the 31st of August and the 1st of September. And those are the first pictures on your screens of Prime Minister Narendra Modi being welcomed at the airport in Tianjin in China. And of course, several dignitaries there to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In fact, those first pictures only on India Today that have been accessed from inside the plane, from outside, when there was a huge delegation to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and he has just touched down in Tianjin in China for the SCO summit. The SCO summit extremely significant this time around because Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also to engage in a bilateral with Chinese Premier Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, which is to happen on Monday. Those are the first pictures of the handshakes and the namaskar that has happened right after Prime Minister Narendra Modi's plane has touched down in Tianjin in China. And there you see a cultural welcome for Prime Minister Narendra Modi as he walks down the red carpet with senior officials and dignitaries. Prime Minister Narendra Modi being welcomed in China for the SCO summit. That holds a lot of significance because remember, Prime Minister has come to China after 7 long years. This following the Gulf clash in 2020. Prime Minister had last visited China in June 2018 when the SCO summit was hosted in Qingdao, and now he has reached Tianjin for the SCO summit. Border tensions and diplomatic chill between India and China, where Prime Minister Modi's presence signals India's return to the table as a confident regional power. The aim, of course, as part of attending this summit is also strengthening the global south, India, China and Russia coming together at the SCO. And we stay with those pictures, the first pictures that have been accessed by India today. In fact, the only channel to get you pictures from inside the plane. And right there, Prime Minister Narendra Modi walking down the red carpet as he has been welcomed by several senior officials and dignitaries at the airport. He has landed in Tianjin for the SCO summit, and all eyes on what will be the outcome of the two big bilaterals that make it as a part of this visit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to meet with Xi Jinping, and the day after that he is also to engage in a bilateral with Vladimir Putin. Remember, all this is happening amid the tariff conflict that the world is witnessing, and this particular visit that holds a lot of significance because the aim is also to strengthen the global south, India, China, Russia coming together at the SCO, reflecting a strong shift with Western powers imposing tariffs and pushing unilateral agendas. India's participation shows its commitment to building coalitions that challenge outdated global hierarchies. Trade and economic leverage, of course, is the other big target to achieve because this summit may open avenues for India, a better market access and stronger regional connectivity. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's presence that adds a lot of weight to India's economic concerns and aspirations. And of course, India is looking at a diplomatic reset with China. This is Prime Minister Modi's first visit to China in over 7 years. And this has come after a lot of groundwork in order to ease tensions, visa resumptions, reopening pilgrimage routes and revived border talks. So all this makes for a chance for both the countries to rebuild trust. Prime Minister Narendra Modi in China as we stay with those first pictures. And I also want to cut across to my colleague Gaurav Sawant, who has been reporting live from Tianjin. Gaurav, the moment we've all been waiting for, Prime Minister's touchdown in Tianjin. He walks down the red carpet and the cultural welcome that he receives.
Very crucial visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Tianjin, China, his first in 7 years, and very important from the point of view of a multilateral visit. You remember, this is the 25th Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit. The Prime Minister here to be a part of a visit where India-China relations, they are on a mend. However, this isn't a bilateral visit in the sense of a bilateral visit in terms of the entire focus being between India and China. The focus here will remain multilateral. The Prime Minister's interactions, of course, with the Chinese President Xi Jinping, from what sources tell us, are likely to be at least 40 minutes long. He will also be having a meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin and with several other leaders from Central Asian republics. So this is a crucial visit when it comes to a very important regional grouping or a Eurasian grouping, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. However, do we see much moving forward on the bilateral front between India and China? Well, there are some steps that have already been taken. There are some more steps that are likely to be taken. But a major breakthrough in India-China relations, in a summit-level meeting, perhaps we will have to wait longer for that.
Continue talking to us as we stay with these pictures, because fact is that America is watching every development very closely and rather uncomfortably. What can one expect from this power play?
On the world stage, this power play is being watched very closely by the Western countries, because many analysts in the West have argued that President Donald Trump has pushed India closer towards Russia and China, something that America was desperately trying for the past 25 years. That should not happen. We were reporting the Pokhran nuclear tests, the sanctions that America had imposed on India in 1999, the Kargil war, then the lifting of those sanctions gradually, and the improvement of India-US relationship over 25 long years, when baby steps were taken, next step in strategic partnership, to the civil nuclear deal, to every government in India and in America, whether it was a BJP government or a Congress government or a BJP government again, or the Republicans and the Democrats in the United States, there was heavy investment in India-US relationship. There was something that India was very proud of, as were the Americans, that India had bipartisan support in the US Congress, as it still does to a large extent. However, Donald Trump 2.0 saw all of that being thrown out of the window, with Donald Trump not just imposing sanctions, imposing tariffs on the world, including on allies and friends like India, but also 25% penalty or sanctions, as the White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt called it, on India for buying Russian oil. And America perhaps expected India to buckle under pressure, and India did not, because India very clearly stated to the world that it was the Biden administration that had urged India to buy more oil. Prime Minister Narendra Modi stood tall at a time when you had European Union leaders, the leadership in several other parts of Asia, that was virtually kowtowing to the Americans. India did not. This is something that China is watching. This is something that Russia is watching. And this is where perhaps every country sees an opportunity for their personal gains. So in every country seeing some personal gains, is it possible for mutual gains also to happen? Now, India does not want great relations with America at the cost of China, or great relations with China at the cost of America. And this is the diplomatic tightrope walk that India is doing, because India has constantly wanted better relations with every country, and which is what explains our multi-aligned policy. However, with China, you had whether Doklam in 2017 or Galwan in 2020, a relationship nosedive. Again, there's something that we've been covering very extensively. The 2014 visit of Chinese President Xi Jinping to India, to Ahmedabad, where there was a lot of warmth from the Indian side, and you had then Chinese incursions taking place simultaneously. However, the two countries were trying to negotiate relationship. Now, right now, when you look at the situation, what Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also attempting to do is to reduce the trade imbalance. $100 billion, $99.2 billion in China's favor. And India wants to, reduce that trade imbalance, export more to Chinese market. China wants India to open the Indian market even further, but then India wants more access to the Chinese market, and of course stability at the borders, because India has made one point very clear: peace and tranquility at the borders is a prerequisite for this relationship to moving forward. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi was recently in India, and he indicated that the recent tensions at the borders were not in the interests of the people of India and China. So does that mean that the disengagement that has already happened at the borders will lead to de-escalation and ultimately de-induction of troops? De-induction may be a long way off, but perhaps de-escalation is something that the two sides can work on. It will be done at the level of the special representatives on the boundary, at the level of the External Affairs Minister, and also at the level of Foreign Ministry and Defense Ministry level dialogue. So multiple level of dialogues are currently underway. This visit of the Prime Minister is more a multilateral visit, not a bilateral visit, point one. And point two, the apprehension in the West that there will be RIC summit, Russia, India, China, on the same plane. That's not happening, is what sources tell India today. We're still waiting for an official confirmation on that. But, there needs to be a lot more groundwork before a summit can happen. And that groundwork still hasn't happened, is what sources tell India today.
Right, Gaurav, I request you to stay on with us. Shweta Singh is also joining us from Tianjin. Shweta, quickly coming to you to get a sense of what one can expect as far as the Modi-Xi bilateral is concerned. That is to happen tomorrow. What's on the agenda?
Well, if we specifically want to talk about the agenda, there's no agenda as such that is being shared by either of the two sides. And definitely there are indications that it is not to be seen as a bilateral, but as prime ministers meeting with the host nation of a multilateral platform. But since India and China have been moving ahead as far as defense concerns remain, or as far as trade talks go, as far as connectivity is concerned, we could imagine that something positive, at least the beginning of something positive, could come out of it.
All right, Shweta, stay on with us. I want to come back to Gaurav. All right, those are live pictures coming in from Tianjin in China. Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacting with the Indian diaspora as he has arrived in China for the SCO summit. And there you see Indians from across the length and breadth of China who've travelled all the way to get a glimpse of Prime Minister Narendra Modi for that one handshake. Prime Minister, as always, adding that personal touch where he interacts, especially with the children. And that very special moment that is being recorded at the moment from Tianjin in China. There are loud chants of Bharat Mata Ki Jai that are resounding from Tianjin in China, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just arrived at the hotel. And there you see a cultural welcome for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a warm reception. We saw the red carpet that was rolled out for Prime Minister Narendra Modi on his arrival at the airport, and as he met with important dignitaries, here he is at that hotel in Tianjin. The cultural exchange is, of course, something that we had been waiting for, as China and India particularly high on that front. And even as India looking to reset diplomatic ties with China. Let's take a And even as we stay with those pictures, I'd like to welcome our special guest joining us on the broadcast. First up, Mr. Sushant Sareen, Strategic Affairs Expert and also a Senior Fellow, ORF. Mr. Sareen, thank you for speaking to India today. We stay with those pictures and your first reactions to what you witness at the moment. From Vande Mataram being played on the sitar and the santoor and the tabla to loud chants of Bharat Mata Ki Jai, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi also witnessing Bharatnatyam performances. A good start to this visit indeed.
Look, honestly, I think the challenges before us are far more serious. And I think all of this is okay if this is what pleases people. I don't have a problem with it. But I think what is more critical is the kind of challenges which await us. There is a diplomatic reset taking place, not just between India and China, but also between India and the United States. There are huge headwinds headed our way, some of it already buffeting us. And I think the kind of flux there is in international affairs is worse today than what it was maybe 5 or 6 months back. So look, if it pleases people to see these cultural, expressions, it's good for them. As far as I am concerned, I would look for the most substantive conversations that are likely to take place over the next day or two. And I think that is what is of greater interest to me, because we've seen these scenes plenty of times in the past. And really, let's face it, it doesn't add up too much. We've seen, even in the Western countries, we've seen the diaspora in the United States, doing howdy Modi and everything. But when push comes to shove, most of those people have gone into their holes and not come out. Except for a few people, nobody has bothered to, pick up cudgels on behalf of India. So these things which we are seeing today, these scenes, I take them with a pinch of salt. And frankly, I don't take them seriously. I'm not impressed by them. I'm afraid that violates other people's sensibilities just too bad.
Right. Then we get down to business and talk about what's really expected out of the big bilateral to happen between Modi and Xi Jinping, because it is his first visit after 7 years after the Galwan clash, and lots that is at the stake when it comes to the LAC situation, whether there can be a realistic reset of trust between India and China, when it comes to India's trade deficit with China, and most importantly, the tariff conflict that the globe is witnessing, and both India and China at the receiving end. How do you really witness what the outcome can be?
Look, my own sense is, and I could be completely wrong, but I think there is a kind of opportunity which has come about. Till about 5 years back, we used to say that perhaps the Chinese president has done everybody a favor by waking up the rest of the world to, the kind of the looming Chinese presence, especially when the Chinese were indulging in what was often referred to as wolf warrior diplomacy. And we used to, blame it on the Chinese. Today, I think India and China, if at all they are headed towards a rapprochement, some kind of normalization, perhaps settling many of their differences, I think we can blame it on Donald Trump and the crazy crowd he has gathered around him in Washington, D.C. So it's a point of inflection, clearly. But the point is, I think both sides sense an opportunity. The question is whether both sides are going to rise up to the occasion to try and sort out some of the big problems that are bedeviling them. And of course, the boundary question is perhaps the mother of all issues between India and China. If you can get that out of the way, and there is willingness on both sides to get into a negotiation with a give and take approach, and you get that out of the way, then I think all the other problems, and there will be plenty of other problems between India and China, are much more easily tackled. The trade deficit, again, we can make a big deal out of it, but as long as market access your market access is not blocked, if we are running a deficit of trade with China, we will make surpluses elsewhere. That was the globalization model. Now, of course, if the Americans are going to dismantle that globalization model of running deficits with one country and running surpluses with other countries, then we will be in a new kind of a scenario, and we'll have to traverse that particular thing. But for now, if I'm running a deficit with China, of course, the deficit with China is just too much. But it helps me have surpluses with other countries. I don't see anything wrong with it. So there will be other issues between India and China. But I think there is a point which has come where maybe we should start looking at the boundary question. Now, we've tried to tackle this issue in the past. The Chinese proposed certain things way back during, if I'm not mistaken, during Deng Xiaoping's time. At that point of time, India was not ready. Subsequently, India made certain offers. The Chinese were not ready. In 2014, Mr. Modi wanted, he was very keen for some kind of a boundary settlement, but the Chinese were not ready to bite. I think both sides have received their comeuppance over the last couple of decades. And again, an opportunity has presented itself. Can we rise to the occasion? I don't know. But if we can, and we can try and sort this thing out, then I suppose that we will be in a better place to tackle some of the emerging challenges that are headed our way. And quite clearly, the United States and the kind of craziness which we are seeing in Washington, D.C., the fact that you have the Europeans who don't know whether they want to assert themselves or they simply want to follow the lead of the United States. You have an entire global south which is in a flux, doesn't know which way to look at. So I think in these circumstances, if India and China can settle or manage their problems, I think the both will be better off for it. But we'll have to wait and see what comes out of this particular meeting. I'm not saying everything will be settled in this one meeting.
Right.
It could give some sense of direction to how the two countries are likely to approach their relationship. And of course, then there is going to be the Russia issue, which is again quite critical. And then, a lot of people are looking at not BRICS, but RICS, Russia, India, China. So let us see how that